Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm excited to be with you here this morning. I'm Olivia Rios, Director of Operations and Programs at the Los Angeles Latino Chamber, and this is the Chamber's first webinar on a very important topic of energy. We'll be discussing the high cost of energy that is affecting everyone's bottom line, as well as the policies that are affecting pricing. Our panel of experts will share current regulations and legislation that impacts businesses and the community. Before we start, we ask that you mute yourself. There is a Q&A after each panel speaker. The session will be recorded and will be available within the next 24 hours on our website. At this point, I'd like to introduce Diana Rodriguez, who's our moderator, and she is the legislative chair and board director at the Los Angeles Latino Chamber and vice president at Actum, a global consulting firm where she works with a diverse group of clients. Welcome, Diana. Happy to see you and for setting the tone for our viewers on the topic of energy and policies that everyone should know.
Thank you, Olivia. Very excited this morning to be here. It's a pleasure to be here and leading this topic with chamber members in the community. Today, we have special guests from Western States Petroleum Association, also known as WSPA, and from Valero Energy. Our first panelist is going to be Cathy Reheis-Boyd. She has served as the president and CEO of the Western States Petroleum Association. Catherine has served as president and CEO of WSPA since January 1st, 2010. She oversees the trade organizations, operations, and advocacy in the 5 Western states, which is California, Arizona, Nevada, Washington, and Oregon. Over her 33-year career at WSPA, Ms. Reheis-Boyd has held a variety of leadership roles, including in 2003 appointment as chief of staff and subsequent promotions to executive vice president and chief operating officer. As part of her 39 years of experience in the oil industry, Ms. Reheis-Boyd worked for an environmental consulting firm on various projects before joining the Getty Oil in Texas, working on environmental compliance at the Kern River field in Bakersfield, California. She currently manages a broad range of association activities, including legislative and regulatory issues associations with transportation fuels, policy, air and water quality, climate change, renewable fuels, and alternative energy issues, crude oil, natural gas production, and many other issues in WSPA's 5 states. And beyond those borders into Canada and abroad. Wow. What an impressive background. I'm excited to jump into the issue with Catherine to find out what is going on in our state of particular interest, what is going on at the pump. We know that California is a driving state, and in fact, California has the most licensed drivers. According to my research, there are more licensed drivers in California than any other state, with 27 million licensed drivers. 84% of the population of California that is of driving age is a licensed driver, followed by Texas and then Florida. So, Catherine, lots to cover, and I'm excited to hear from you. But we kind of want to know what is going on. We're hearing different things out there. So please share with us what WSPA does and what some of their challenges that you're facing.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you, Olivia. Let me start by saying this is such an important topic, and I just want to thank the the Latino Chamber of Commerce in Los Angeles for hosting this event, because I think there's so much information out there, or misinformation as well, and I hope to bring some clarity to that, and really looking forward to the Q&A section so I can answer any additional questions you might have as we go through this. I'm going to try to keep it as light as I can, because this is a complex discussion, right? There's nothing easy about the energy supply system, but what is really important is people are concerned. I mean, this is people's livelihood, we don't have a lot of disposable income that we can spend on a lot of the energy costs that we're seeing in California. And it's not just from the transportation fuel. We're also seeing it in electricity. We're seeing it in natural gas. We're seeing it in certainly gasoline. So the energy costs for consumers and constituents is high, and that makes life even harder every single day. So let me try to bring some clarity as to why that is, and also to hopefully engage your help in sending some messages to our policymakers about what can really be done to alleviate and minimize some of the excessive costs we're seeing in energy and why we're seeing them. We're just going to talk a little bit about the energy realities, and why I like to start with this is just to inform ourselves about the California market, because it's big. We've got 40 million people who drive 36 million trucks and cars. And so it is a big energy market. And when you look at just the gasoline side, we are the third largest consumer in the entire planet of transportation fuels as a state. And that is pretty remarkable when you look at the only two entities in front of us are the United States of America and China. So that just puts on the foundation. It is a lot of cars, a lot of trucks, a lot of transportation, and we have to fuel that 24/7. And then you look at the diesel fuel. Many of you I know are very involved in utilizing diesel in your work. And we are the top diesel consuming state in the United States as well. The second largest transportation fuel used in California is diesel, and we're the top in the United States. And then we're the first largest in aviation fuel. So jet fuel consumption in the country, again, is, California is top of the list. And our consumption in California has increased 37% between 2010 and 2019 and continues to go up. We'll probably get some more recent statistics there, but it is a very large part of the market as well. So the takeaway from this is it's a big market, and we got a lot of people who rely on transportation fuels every single day for their livelihood and for their homes and getting from A to B. Thanks, Carlos. A lot of people were, when you pull up to the gas pump, you don't, it's high, right? It's definitely very large in California, and that's very concerning to folks. And so the first thing people think is it must be the oil companies who are causing that. And this is a slide that is from the California Energy Commission and other sources in the state. And so this is documented from the agencies. Every time you pull up to the gas pump, $1.32 off the top is before we ever see it or do anything with it. So you've got a very large amount in state and federal excise tax. State tax you see there, 58 cents, 18 cents federal tax. And then you see some interesting other cents on the dollar that goes into the price at the pump. And those are environmental programs, low carbon fuel standard, cap and trade. I'm not going to go into what those programs are, but they are programs to deal with climate change. I'm not saying they are not meritorious programs, but they are programs that cost money. And so every time you pull up the pump, at least 41 cents is from those programs. Then you have an additional 13 cents on state and local tax, and then some percent on what's called an underground storage tank fee. The reason we put this out there is just to remind people in California, because of the policies we have chosen to do, meritorious as they are, they do bring another $1.32 per gallon in California. The only thing everybody else shares in the United States on this pump is 18% of the federal tax. So everybody gets that, but everything else is California based. And so that is, Diana, one of the biggest elements is the compilation of the state and federal taxes, and of course, the programs that we vote into being. Okay, Carlos? So everyone, well, why is it so high? What goes into this cost? Now you saw a piece of that, right? I just shared with you $1.32 of what goes into the cost of the pump. The other biggest thing is the price of crude oil. And people say, well, what does crude oil have to do with gas at the pump? Crude oil comes out of the ground and it is turned into our refineries. Brissa's here from Valero. They take crude oil and they make valuable products out of it. Crude oil, as in and of itself, is not utilized unless it's made into something. So our refiners take it from various sources. We'll talk about that, and they make gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel out of it. But that price of crude oil is a global price. It's set by the global market. We do not set the price of crude oil. So when the crude oil is high, and it can be by things of what we're experiencing now, not only with the war in Russia and Ukraine, but also the recent activities with Israel and Palestine, all of those are influencing the price of crude oil. So when there is a view that there is going to be some scarcity of crude oil, the price of crude oil goes up, and that is instantly reflected at the cost at the pump. The other issue is California is very unique market, and I will go into that a little bit on an additional slide, because we are energy isolated. What does that mean? We don't have pipelines that bring crude oil to the state of California or product. What we have is a ability to produce oil here in the state of California and refine it. However, we have recent activities through the governor's office that are eliminating our ability to produce crude oil in the state of California. And so if we produce less crude oil here, that has to go to refiners to make gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. Where does it come from? It comes from marine imports. And we already have congested marine infrastructure that can't take a lot of additional tankers for crude. And so that, again, makes the supply tight. And when supply is tight, price is impacted negatively. So we're an energy island, and that is causing some of our issues with high gas prices. It's also, I mean, for air quality purposes, a very good thing. We make the cleanest gasoline on the planet. It's a specific specification for making sure we're not impacting smog and ozone and all the other pollutants people are very concerned about. So this cleanest gasoline is expensive to make. It's more expensive than anywhere else to make, and it's made here in California. So we can get some of it from foreign sources, but it takes a long time to get here, and it also has a transportation cost. So it's best to make it here. It's best to produce oil here and refine it here as much as we possibly can to minimize impact on price. Infrastructure and investment is lacking. So if we are going to, we talk a lot about the energy expansion, the energy evolution, the energy transition. We don't really think it's a transition as much as an evolution or expansion. But that transition to a lower carbon economy in the future is still going to take a lot of infrastructure and investment. And we are not making those investments and infrastructure improvements on either side of the equation, not the current traditional oil and gas side, and not enough in the expansion to the energy future. So these policies do drive up increased cost. So you can see here, it's a lot of factors that go into the cost at the pump. Carlos? And here is just some of that energy isolation. The pipeline infrastructure I've already touched on. There's no crude oil pipelines that come here, so it has to come from either producing it here, which we are not allowed to do at the current time because the governor has decided not to issue any new permits. So the crude oil is here, we just can't produce it, and it therefore has to come by tanker, which brings the price up. Rail and truck transportation is very limited, and it's very expensive, and it's very controversial. So it's not one of the more preferred options. And then shipping, with the increased demand, we talked about the war, shipping availability is reduced, and it costs 2 to 4 times higher. So this equation is, again, why it costs so much in California. Carlos? And here's where the oil comes from. So a lot of folks, again, we could change this picture dramatically if we were allowed to produce the valuable resource we have in California. The oil is here, we just can't get it because the policy and political environment doesn't allow us to extract it. And so therefore, you look at this chart and it shouldn't make you feel too comfortable. Libya, Iraq being major importers of our oil supplies. And so, it's much better to not be dependent on foreign sources that not necessarily in all cases share our values, share our opinions, and we would rather be energy secure than energy dependent. But where we are is energy dependent, not energy secure, and we can change that equation. Okay. And then here is what the other costs add up for our consumer throughout the state. We have increased labor costs, we have higher utility costs, there's swipe fees, there's lands, there's regulations, and that picture of regulations is not overestimated. The amount of regulatory burden in California exceeds any other state, and that makes it difficult to do business. And when it's difficult to do business, it's usually having an increase on the price. So it's all of the things I've already talked about, and then you're adding on these additional. And this is from the California Fuels Convenience Alliance. These are the folks that own the retail gas stations. And so they represent the gas station owners, and this is what they're seeing. And so we thought this was a valuable representation to share with you. Carlos? So there isn't really a mystery or why California's gas prices are highest in the nation. And we just listed here some of those extra costs again from the California Fuels and Convenience Alliance. It's just a nice pictorial of just how many things businesses in the state have to comply with, have to deal with, and it makes it very difficult and expensive to produce the fuels that we need to fuel the economy of the state. So just leave that with you. You can look through it more at your leisure, and certainly ask me any other questions on any specific particular policy. Carlos? And so everybody's wondering, well, isn't this just the oil companies gouging the public? I think what I've hopefully shared with you is there are so many factors that go into the price of the pump. That's the easy thing for politicians to do because they get political capital by really demonizing this industry. And if there's one thing that frustrates me more than ever after doing this for 40 years, I am so proud of this industry and what it does to fuel the economy every single day. That is a huge, huge task. And to do it safely and protect the environment, I just get very, very upset and frustrated at politicians who demonize the very industry who keeps this economy going. And so when the Energy Commission was assigned by the legislature to collect a lot of data from the oil companies, this is very recently, it's a bill called SBX 1-2, something you'll probably forget as soon as we quit talking. But takeaway from that is it required a lot of reporting and transparency from our companies, huge amounts of data submitted to the Energy Commission so they could determine if there was any kind of price gouging going on and if they needed to put a cap on profits that oil companies make. This is the first July data that came out from the Energy Commission showing companies made 14 cents profit on every gallon of gasoline, where the government has collected 9 times that. Part of that $1.08 was shown in that previous pump that I showed you all, the $1.32. But, take out the federal, take out that, about, they're collecting $1.08 per gallon for things. And yet they are accusing oil companies of profiting at 14 cents a gallon. So this just gives you a sense of why this is important for us to get information out. Now, this is a July snapshot. We'll see what other information comes out of our providing all of our transactions and beginning to end and any kind of contracts that are made. All of that has gone to the Energy Commission as we speak and has cost our members a boatload of money to submit all this. But in the end, we're seeing obviously 14 cents a gallon is what they came out with for July. So here's just the thing to take away. When you have less supply, you have higher costs. It's all about supply. You want to bring more supply to California. And you do that through the policy choices you make. You do that by allowing producers in California who employ an amazing group of women and men throughout the state that bring crude oil to bear and get it to refiners to make gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. You want more of that. You want more infrastructure, you want more investment so that you can have more supply. More supply, lower cost. Less supply, higher cost. It's as simple as that. Carlos? So we're trying to ask the right questions with the Energy Commission, because we don't think this is a smooth transition going forward. It's a valuable transition going forward. Do not get me wrong. My members are all involved in it. They are in every source of innovation I can point to and think of. Hydrogen, carbon capture and storage, biofuels, wind, solar, electricity. They're in everything to move us from where we are to a lower carbon economy. That is not the question. The question is, what investments are going to be required to make sure we can do that? And it's not just investments for the future, it's investments for today, because we have an infrastructure of the energy system now that is vulnerable. And we do not want a vulnerable energy system, not on the transportation fuel side, certainly not on the electricity side. And the reason we are keeping Diablo power plant on, nuclear power plant on, is because the electricity grid is not ready to take on the transition. So that has to be left on. Why is the governor leaving on 4 natural gas power plants? Same reason. The electricity grid is not ready to assume the load that is needed to go from where we are to where we need to be. So we have to make investments in the current structure so that we can make sure we get to the next one. And as you know, we have 2 refineries in California that have, or maybe you don't know, I shouldn't assume that have converted from traditional oil and gas to renewable diesel. That is a great thing. Renewable diesel is lower carbon, certainly no hydrocarbons. It's made from fats and oils and other renewable sources. But when you take 2 refineries off the market, it does have an impact on a tight gasoline supply. Again, tighter supply, higher cost. So we have to look at these things in a holistic fashion. So we don't think it's a smooth transition. We think it's more like cliffs and hard landings unless we change course, not on the evolution of energy, but just how we go about it. And we are seeing huge declines in crude oil production of 9 to 11%. When the state is emphasized, oh, it's only 1.7%. No, it's 9 to 11%. So if we are not making crude oil here and we're requiring it from foreign sources that take 40 days to get here and then get it to refiners to make gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel, that is a higher cost. Why would you do that? And oh, by the way, it increases greenhouse gas emissions from the ships that have to get it here so that we can make the valuable products that you all want us to make. So it's the same thing in pipelines. It's the same thing in ports. We have aging infrastructure that needs attention, and we are trying to ask the right questions so that we can plan together with the state and with you all on how do we get where we are to where we're going. So there it is. The state and the Energy Commission thinks it's either smooth or lumpy. We think it's a cliff with hard landings. And so we have to have some really, really hard conversations about how we make it more towards the left and less towards the right. And I'll just end with this. What's really important from our perspective, it's like how we all deal with our if you have 401k plans or any kind of investments in your stock option, any kind of investments for the future, you would never put all your eggs in one basket. You would diversify so that you have an ability to take advantage of all kinds of opportunity. And this is why we promote an all of the above energy strategy. And you see, electricity is there, solar is there, wind is there, hydro is there, as is traditional oil and gas, the pumping unit that gets oil out of the ground, and the picture to the left, the refinery that makes gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. And that far upper right-hand corner picture, this is the newest technology called direct air capture. And if you can imagine, for greenhouse gases, the biggest concern is CO2, what we breathe in and out every day. And it's not a pollutant, but it does cause changes in the atmosphere that cause problems, increasing sea rise, as we know, many problems from climate change. And I just put that in there because if you can imagine the conversation right now that's being deployed throughout the world is to literally directly capture CO2 from the atmosphere in through those big fans and store it underground so that we reduce CO2 and help on climate change. So it's a very exciting technology. Many companies in California are looking at this technology, and the Department of Energy is putting a lot of interest and money into it. So I didn't want to leave on just all of the problems we have with the system. We also are optimistic on the innovations that will hopefully get us more affordably from A to B. And everybody's in it. We're in it together. And so certainly hope you all follow us on our actionwispa.org website, but there is power in everybody. And again, Diana, Olivia, I thank you so much for allowing us to just try to give a foundation of understanding as to why prices are what they are and what we can collectively do about them to minimize the cost and affordability to all of those who are desperately in need of it. And now I'll certainly happy to answer any questions that anyone may have, now or later.
Well, I have a quick question. So, so our government is telling us that by 2035, they're really pushing the electric vehicles because the grid, and you're mentioning that the grid will not be able to support it. Where do you see fuel at, and what needle do you think might be moved, and what type of innovations do you see down the line with this?
Yeah, thank you, Olivia. And I think what you're referring to is the government has a policy in place now that there will be no more sales of internal combustion engines in 2035. The problem with that is, one, we don't think mandates and bans are a way to get a good energy policy. So I'll just start with that. So we don't support banning the internal combustion engine. But the problem with 2035 is it's not that we won't have still probably 36 million internal combustion engines to fuel. You may not sell anymore, but you're still going to have a boatload of them to fuel, right? So back to that, we have to have the investment in our current infrastructure to make sure we can still do that. If we lose another refinery in California, that will make the gasoline market extremely tight and drive price up. So we have to make sure we are giving incentives and investment to continue to do what we're doing so we can get to the evolution that everybody wants. So I think part of the policies, I would say, let us produce crude oil here in California. Allow us to have permits so we can have people who are employed in the state of California. We produce it in the most cleanest environmental way possible. There's no one that does it better in the world than we do. So let us produce crude oil so that we can bring down less in foreign imports and minimize the cost of transporting it here. Easy solution. So give us permits to do what we do best and employ people in California. So that's an easy one. Secondly, allow us to invest in refineries in a way that doesn't continue to add cost. Because the more cost you continue to add, the harder it is going to be for companies, and I'm sure Brissa will talk about this, to continue to invest in a state that has made it clear they really don't want us to exist here anymore. That is not a great incentive to keep doing what we do 24/7, providing fuel to everyone who lives here. So partner with us. Here's another easy one. Don't villainize us. Join us. Partner with us. Meet with us. Let's talk about what can we do to encourage investment and continue producing gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel for the constituents of the state. Another easy one, okay? Keep a diversified portfolio. Don't have one solution. The state of California has decided to electrify everything. That is the goal. It's stated in every policy. There's no hiding it. They're very vocal about it. And I don't think putting your eggs in one basket is a great idea, because we see what happens. We have rolling blackouts. We ask tankers at berth that, as tankers pull into the ports of LA and Long Beach, they actually plug into electricity so that they're not idling with the fuel that they use to get here. That's a good thing. But unfortunately, what do? We ask them to unplug because we don't have enough electricity to power the system. That's not an energy plan. That's a workaround to a system that cannot accommodate already what we have, let alone Stanford just came out, Olivia, with some statistics to power the grid for the electric vehicles that we anticipate. We have to expand the grid capacity 3 to 5 times. And we're already struggling with it now. So these are not insurmountable issues. They are solvable issues as long as everybody is brought to the table to have that conversation. And you're going to hear from Argelia about the need for everybody having a voice in this conversation, because we all have to be in it and we all have to solve it. So there's some very easy things to do. There's hard things to do, which is, how do you expand pipeline capacity? How do you increase the ability of the ports to accommodate what's obviously the stated policy of California? We're going to have more tankers if we can't produce it here. So those are harder things to do because permitting is difficult. Land availability is difficult. How do you expand tank storage? How do you deal with limited capacity at a port? So there's some easy things we can do, and then there's some harder ones. But in my opinion, all solvable as long as everybody's allowed in the conversation.
Thank you.
Catherine, that's fantastic. We've learned so much this morning. There's so many questions, but of course, we're limited on such a huge topic that really affects all of us on a daily basis. And I'm so thankful that you were available this morning. I know you're super busy running around trying to save us from all this policies that are making our gas go up. But, I find it interesting after hearing your explanation that the governor is in this past September assigned as somebody to come and investigate what is wrong with why our prices are going up. So I'll have to send him your presentation so he can figure it out.
You, Diane, that would be wonderful.
So thanks again.
Right. Someone just asked if they could have a copy of the deck. All right, we'll be able to share it with everyone after today's presentation.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Olivia, one other just quick, I was in Phoenix yesterday testifying to the legislature there, because why? Their cost of their fuel is being impacted by California policies because they have no refineries.
Wow.
And so they're supplied by California, and certainly a little bit from New Mexico and Texas, but they are impacted seriously from what's happening in California. And so they also are quite concerned about everything we just talked about. And Nevada as well is supplied by California.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Catherine. We appreciate, again, your time. And now we're going to go on to our second panelist, who happens to be Argelia Leon, who also works for WSPA. I've had the pleasure of knowing Argelia for some time now, and have seen her flourish professionally. So let me tell you about my friend. Argelia joined the WSPA team in October 2017 and currently serves as Director of Strategic Partnership and Southwest Policy, I apologize, where she is responsible for developing and maintaining WSPA's affiliation in the 5 Western states, including California, Oregon, Washington, Arizona, and Nevada. Argelia earned a bachelor's degree in political science and journalism from California State University, Sacramento. Argelia will be sharing with us a new program that WSPA recently launched, Levanta tu Voz, Raise Your Voice. It's a program that WSPA launched this past spring to empower voices of Latino community to share their personal stories about the importance of affordable and reliable energy. A recent study showed that 80% of Latinos in California agreed that ideas to improve air quality and fight climate change only work if they're affordable for everyone. And 82% agreed that the cost of living in California is already extremely expensive, and that middle and low income Californians will get hit the hardest by extreme energy policies. In just the first 8 months of the program, more than 1,300 people have signed up to learn more, to share their stories, and to take action against inequitable energy policies. This program has been held by WSPA's Director of Strategic Partnerships, Argelia Leon. She is skilled in community outreach and with a strong background in navigating policy issues. Argelia has led the strategic growth of WSPA's first bilingual program. Having grown up in Colinga and pulling from her family's own personal experience working in the oil industry, Argelia serves with passion as a spokesperson for the program. Thank you, Argelia, for being here this morning. Argelia, can you tell us how this program, a little bit about this program, and why did WSPA think it was necessary to discuss the energy policies that affect Latinos at the state levels to meet the energy goals it has set?
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, and thank you, Diana, and thank you to the LA Latino Chamber. Just very grateful for the opportunity to talk to your members. So why we did it? Well, as we know, there are 40 million drivers in California, as our president and CEO just gave you an overview of our energy realities. But more importantly, there's 15 million Latinos Latinos living in communities throughout California, 4.8 million in Los Angeles County alone. So this conversation has been long in the works. I want to make sure that everyone understands that it's something that WSPA has been thinking about, researching, working with. As my relationships in the community, I just celebrated 6 years at WSPA yesterday. So I am on my 6th year at WSPA, and during that time, I have had the privilege of being, in the communities, working with people on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of the Latino organizations, like the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the LA, Latino Business Association, would tell us, why don't you do anything to educate Latinos, who is a large consumer base? But not only that, we are also the majority of the people that are doing the super commutes, right? It's a lot of people that are driving back and forth to get to their job sites. And so the idea stemmed after, the governor announced in September 2020 that they would ban the internal combustion engine, the sale of the internal combustion engine by 2035. And our team assembled and put together a poll to kind of take the pulse of what Latinos were feeling in terms of this energy transition. And what we heard is exactly, what you can imagine. It's too fast, it's too soon, it's not for us. So our team worked together. It took us 3 years to really ensure that we got a great program going, but we came up with Levanta tu Voz. And Levanta tu Voz is set out to empower the voices of the Latino community to share their personal stories in their words about how this energy transition is going to impact them. And so that is the goal of the program. So like we said, we based this on polling. In the spring of 2022, WSPA conducted a poll. Diana has shared some of the feedback that we received, that Latinos do agree that we need to improve air quality and climate change, but it'll only work if it's accessible to everyone, not just the wealthy. And again, we set out with this program to do 3 things. One was to test our long-held belief at WSPA that once we engaged or educated the Latino community of these changes, that they would engage to share their concerns. Number 2 was to prove the theory that, these energy realities had long been ignored in the Latino community. People were not being taken into account, although you will find that when, lawmakers or public policy officials talk about the need to, create climate projects or programs. It is to be able to serve underserved communities or communities of color that are disproportionately impacted by, climate change and air quality goals. But what we found is the third piece of this is that when we would go to these community hearings, and I would do a lot of these community hearings, both at the California Air Resources Board, in the legislature, at the local level, that we would find the environmental justice community would, bring in people. And a lot of the times people didn't even know what they were there to do. They were there to fill a seat and talk out of a talking point. And I, saw it over and over and over again. And so for us, it was like, these people do not speak for our community. And the spokespersons have for years maintained that they do. So this is actually our effort to provide a platform so people can speak for themselves. And our approach has been, putting together a paid media and advertising campaign where we shared a video on, working hands and how this impacts the people that are working in California. And what we're asking is, if you agree with us, join us in our effort to raise these voices. And as you heard earlier today, we have 1,300 people. We launched in May 15th, 2023. So we've been on the air literally 5 months. And we have been hearing nothing but fantastic feedback from people that come to us and say, what do we need to do? So they've signed on to our platform, they've joined our program, and more importantly, we're just getting started. You were at the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce this last, at their annual convention. You heard me during the breakfast panel have a broad conversation with Julian Canete, who was a partner in getting this program going, and we worked with a majority of his executive committee to get their insights and their feedback on how we engage small business owners. And also because we heard from small business owners, how do you help us advocate for some of the impacts? So these are some of the videos that you're going to see. We're going to start with the quick roundup of the program through our sizzle reel. So Carlos, I know you have that video. We can get that started and you can get just a visual of what we've done with this program.
Nuestra comunidad es bien trabajadora. Vivir en California es muy caro. Nuevas leyes en California exigen que nuestros vehículos y máquinas nuevas sean
El día de hoy les queremos hablar acerca del programa estatal Levanta tu Voz.
¿Quiénes están lanzando el nuevo programa Levanta tu Voz? ¿De qué se trata, Argelia?
Bueno, si usas vehículo o maquinaria de gasolina, este anuncio es para ti.
El objetivo del programa es que la gente se involucre en el diálogo que está pasando en Sacramento, donde los políticos están diciendo que tenemos que electrificar todo el transporte.
Levantatuvoz.org.
Gracias, Argelia, por tener a la comunidad latina presente en Levanta tu Voz.
Juan, buenas tardes, bienvenido y dinos de qué se trata este programa.
Hispanos estarán afectados por esta transición energética porque pronto no vamos a tener la opción de comprar carros a gasolina.
Como gente trabajadora que somos, necesitamos tener opciones que sean económicas y confiables. No las leyes que nos digan en qué tenemos que gastar nuestro dinero.
Nosotros estamos diciendo tiene que servir para todos, no nomás los ricos. Y por eso queremos que la gente levante su voz.
That's kind of an overview of what we've done with this program. From the time we made that video, we've actually had 1,300 responders go into the website, sign up, want to share their stories. We're about to tee up one of those stories now with one of our first champions that stepped up and was like, I have a lot to say about this issue. I'm a small business owner out of Sacramento. And, you know, what is happening in California is really impacting me. And so the goal, again, this program is to engage the Latino community, especially small business owners who are part of this wonderful chamber, the LA Latino Chamber, to advocate. Because at the end of the day, you know, those policies are going to impact those that can least afford it. And it should be, you know, again, 4.8 million Latinos in LA County alone. We should be engaging in the energy policy debate. Whether you agree or don't agree, I think the voice is important and they need to hear from us, because otherwise you have other people and other interests saying, we are here to speak for you and we are here to tell you what's good for you. And so we encourage everyone who's listening today to share about Levanta Tu Voz. We have a QR code that you can scan. But with that, I want to tee up just really important, this one colleague of yours who you'll know because he's part of the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Executive Board. And this is his story. So Carlos, if you can tee up that wonderful story from our great partner, Marcus Gomez.
My business means everything to me. I was once asked, you know, where's your happy place? And I told them, I said, in my warehouse. Car board came out and they wanted to do the Clean Air Act. You know, I had to sell one of my trucks, you know, because it didn't meet the standard. And so they wouldn't register it, you know, and it was a perfectly good truck. You know, I had to go out and buy a brand new truck that met the standards, and you're talking $55,000 for the truck. I wish that when they started making all these laws and I wish that we were at the table so that we could give our input.
You can scan that QR code, you can visit the website, and encourage everyone that's on the line today, join us. As Cathy said, one of my biggest things is there's diversity of perspectives. We don't all think one way, everyone thinks different. And so it's important that, the 120 legislators in California, the governor, the CARB Air Resources Board, your local AQMD, your local elected officials, your mayors, everyone that is in the decision-making process, understand that as we work to make this transition in California, it needs to work for everyone. It's too costly, it's too soon, and it cannot work if it leaves half of the population out. So with that, I wanted to just thank the LA Latino Chamber for having me and my wonderful president and CEO. And as you know, WSPA is here to really advocate on behalf of affordable, reliable, and accessible energy for the members that make up our association and for all the people of California that will be impacted by these policies. I'm happy to take questions if there's any, but if not, again, want to just encourage everyone to visit us at www.levantatuvos.org. It's in Spanish and it's in English. So it's a bilingual program reaching out to our 15 million Latinos in California.
Argelia, thank you for being with us this morning and sharing your wonderful program. I'm so impressed. Part of my work, I'm out in a lot of those meetings that you're mentioning, and there is not a lot of seats left that from people that are not being paid to be there. So I encourage all those folks that are watching this to pay attention to your local meetings that have to do with energy policy and try to attend. I know it's difficult, but try to attend because people are making decisions without you, and this is moving right along, and it really affects everybody. So Argelia, thank you for sharing with us how to get involved. I think we'll have the QR code in the chat so we can, if anybody's interested in signing up, it would be great. Do we have any questions in the chat, Olivia?
I looked at the chat. There's no questions.
Do you have one?
I always have questions.
Yeah, I know you do.
Well, my question, and Argelia articulated it very well. So my comment or question is, our members are mostly English speakers or bilingual and also hold white collar jobs. This too impacts them, not just disadvantaged communities. So are these, I guess you answered, these resources are available. They could get them through the website. And because we all need our voices to be heard. Not everyone, drives the old vehicles. There's some folks that are in a position who drive a nice luxury car, but with the economy being the way it is, it really affects everyone across the board, not only those that, are less disadvantaged. So what, is there something different that someone, say a business owner who has a $5 million company, that's still considered a small business. What can they do? What resources are available for them to tap into?
Yeah, well, thank you for the question, Olivia. Well, you heard from Marcus Gomez. Marcus Gomez is a business owner. He's had his business since the 1950s. He's a second or third generation owner. So he is exactly, the type of person that you're just describing, who is trying, it's actually a global clothing recycler. He exports his clothing from California all over the globe. And we are not, this program is an approach for everyone in California. It's not, I would even argue that it's beyond the Latino community. I think anyone who is impacted by these policies, we originated it. It has evolved. It has evolved since its origination. It was really more to inform people of this change. But as we lean in and we hear from the community themselves, we find that there is a variety of different perspectives. California is a diverse state with different regions. What is important to someone in San Francisco is different to what's important to someone in the Imperial Valley. And so our approach is to hear from everyone and share those perspectives. And so there's an opportunity on our website for you to scan our QR code and share your story. And if you're interested, of doing more advocacy, we welcome that as well. As you see, Marcus, we created a whole video around his story. We have a variety of other partners throughout the state who have shared their story, and we have created content. But our goal is to try to really curate these stories and then figure out a way to get them in front of the decision makers. So we welcome everyone, regardless of age, gender, economic status. It's an all-inclusive program, and it doesn't, it's not meant for one demographic over the other, because at the end of the day, like Cathy said, energy policy impacts us all. And so that is the goal of this program. We're also looking to really encourage the younger demographic in California, just given a lot of the indoctrination in the schools that's very anti-industry, anti-oil, helping them get educated about what that means when you talk about, shutting it down, or all these very aggressive policies that want to put this industry out of business. My biggest takeaway here, if it's not made of stone, it's not made of glass, it's not made of wood, it's likely made out of petroleum product. And it's not just what you're pumping in your gas, in your car. It is every single commodity in our Western way of life. So it's heating, it's cooling, it's your car, it's your lipstick, your purses, everything is derived from this crucial product. And for people to be out there advocating for aggressive policies is just really short-sighted, and it really puts us at a disadvantage economically. So, again, Olivia, long answer to a short question, but I hope that you guys understand that this is an all-inclusive program. It is aimed at the 15 million Latinos, but we welcome everyone.
Well, thank you. There is one question in the chat box. Both presenters failed to mention the number of Latinos who work in the energy industry in a state that is actively trying to displace their jobs. And I think, if I'm correct, Brissa will be addressing that, but can you also address that as well?
How many Latino workers in the state of California? I don't have the figure on top of my head. I don't know, Cathy, if you know it. I know we've pulled it before. We do have we're in the process of updating a economic impact report that gives us an overview of what that is. But I can tell you that it is a lot of Latinos in the state of California. We actually do an Energy Worker Day every year. Again, not just Latinos, workers throughout the state of California that come up to Sacramento and advocate on behalf of their jobs and what it means to them. And it's not just oil workers. Think about the economic ripple effect of the industry. You put oil production and refining out of a job, you're also impacting truck drivers, you're impacting, the goods movement, you're impacting every aspect that touches that industry. So I would say it's, in terms of Latinos, it's in the thousands. And in terms of just jobs overall, it's in the millions, because you're talking about the economic ripple effect of oil and gas in the state of California. And I just want to close with saying, my dad hauled crude oil. This industry has provided a pathway to the middle class for me and my family. I'm a proud Coalinga oiler. I was born and raised in the Coalinga Huron area. and it's a way of life for me and a lot of people there. So when you're talking about ending production, you're talking about ending communities and ending opportunities for people like me. So I know Brissa is working on getting that info, and she can elaborate more on an exact figure of what that looks like in the state of California.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Argelia. And now, if you know, in the interest of time, we're going to move forward to our third panelist, who, if you don't know her by now, then you need to know her. She's amazing. Her name is Brissa Sotelo, and she is with Valero. She needs no introduction, but Brissa joined the Valero team in 2017 as Director of Community Relations and Government Affairs at Valero Energy. She is a huge advocate for her company and everything around that they do, and very much what the company does to give back to the community. So I'll make it short because we are running out of time. So I wanted Brissa to have ample time to move forward. So Brissa, can you say a couple of things and let us know what Valero does?
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Brissa Sotelo-Vargas with Valero. So excited to be here. I know we have very short time. I'm going to ask Carlos to bring up my presentation so that I can go somewhat through it. I'm not going to go fully through it because I understand that we are on such short time. And I want to thank you for being here. We're going to go to the next slide. So who is Valero? Valero is a Fortune 500 company manufacturing and marketing petroleum-based company on low carbon liquid transportation fuels and petrochemical products. We are primarily in the US, Canada, the United Kingdom, Ireland, and Latin America with over 15 refineries. I work at one of those, proud to work in the Wilmington refinery. And we also have another one in California, which is Benicia. So we get double whammed at the state, if you can just imagine. We also, have renewables, and we do that by having ethanol plants, 12 throughout the not Southwest, but the West, Midwest. And then we also have what we call diamond green diesel. So overall, on the plan to have renewables as well, complying, but also making those changes because we know that with the advancements of technology, we can continue to try to bring those transportation fuels that, number one, are going to be affordable. Number two, access to all, equitable to all. And I think you heard the theme this morning that is that these regulations and bills are being created without having much input for those that it's going to affect the most, that don't have access, the most that are underrepresented, and have not had the opportunity to talk about the impacts to them necessarily at their own home, at their own businesses. And as chambers, we should be worried about that. As businesses, as residents, we definitely should be worried about that. So today, Valero is a leader in the production of low carbon liquid transportation fuels because of strategic actions that we actually took 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago. We are committed to the responsible use and management of natural resources. So, I feel like folks don't really understand what goes on in a refinery. So we'll go to the next slide real briefly. And I won't go too much about all the process. Here's where all our locations are in operations. We'll go to the next slide, Carlos. And I think this might break down more about our people. So I'm going to wait on that, and I'll let you kind of look at that. Well, I know we had a question about how many people are in our industry. I could tell you about how many people are in our industry at Valero. I can't tell you about that in the entire industry, although I know we're working on an economic report on that. But real briefly, petroleum products are not only transportation fuels. They don't only go in your car. There are fuel oils for heating and electricity generation, asphalt. You like nice roads without all those potholes, road oil, feedstocks for making chemicals, plastics, and synthetic materials. That's in our everyday use, guys. That is what we do. In fact, petroleum products are used in everything, like Argelia mentioned, all the way from gel capsules to bubble gum. The plastics used in prosthetic legs, in prosthetic arms or any sort of other limb that's being replaced, there's petroleum in that. I mean, how many of you remember when everybody was trying to look for that white gold during COVID? Everybody wanted sanitizer, like that was going to, you almost wanted to drink it, right? So sanitizer was white gold, and that is our product. There is petroleum-based product in there. In fact, all the medical devices that are used in hospitals, and I'll show you a slide in a few, are made with our products. Yet we have this state legislature that continues to villainize our industry, because I think that is sexy, because they don't understand really what goes into products. I think they may forget that they get from, Southern California all the way to Sacramento in an airplane. What does that use? Last time I checked, there was nothing that actually plugged in for them to get them there. And they didn't walk. And maybe they use their Tesla, but guess what? Their Tesla is something that they use as an access tool. You can't tell me that, my neighbor that cuts lawns for a living and has 5 houses set up every single day is going to be is going to have the exact same access as some of the legislators or some of the folks that are coming up with the narrative for us. And we're not at the table. We're not being asked. They're not asking our businesses. They're not asking my brothers that own the catering trucks. Whether you like catering trucks or not, I bet you like the Koji one or you like the Taco one. But those also use our products. And guess what, guys? They can't convert into those $300,000, $400,000 per truck. That is per truck. And those are folks that are trying to make a living. That's the same thing that you're going to talk about with, again, the gentleman that does our yard that has to now convert into a lawnmower. I mean, I'm not saying we can't do that. I'm just saying that there's not equitable access. There's no equitable access. So if that gentleman converts his lawnmower into an electric lawnmower, he's only going to be able to do his own yard. That's it. Because guess what? That battery dies. That battery dies, and he's going to call the other 5 homes he had lined up for that day, and is going to have to tell him he's going to come back a different day. And I'll tell you why, because we have one at our home. And my son actually did the yard, or half the yard, last week. And I said, hey, Anthony, what happened to the rest of the yard? He said, Mom, the battery died. I said, well, that's not a good excuse. So, I mean, again, this is someone who might have access, but when you think about the everyday fleet, or maybe somebody that's just starting off their lawnmower business, doing yards, landscaping, is not going to be able to do that. So again, I'll talk about our people. Valero has about 10,000 employees throughout all our system. And you'll see here that, we concentrate very much on making sure that our employees are highly paid. Our employees some of our operators enter our industry with just a high school diploma, and they are making close to $100,000. They go through training. They go through a lot of extensive training because safety is our number one concern. And they are making a living. They are changing the trajectory of their lives, of their families. And we are trying to make sure that people along our fence line are getting those jobs, because that's going to be life-changing. They can put their kids through different sports. They can put their kids through college, which is the American dream, or they can try to get into the California housing market, which seems to be difficult even for those that have access. So I want to say that I'm very thankful to be in this industry, because it has allowed me to do those kind of things. And we want to make sure that that's fair enough for others as well. Next slide. So how do we get all this product? So crude is brought in. I think we mentioned earlier that we do not have our own crude here in California specifically. We really bring it in. We can't really bring stuff in through pipelines. It can only go out. That is only a California rule. Product only goes out, does not come in via pipeline. So it arrives at the port and then gets brought in via ship or pipeline and then goes into our refining process. We'll go to the next slide real quick. We break down all these molecules, we heat it up, and then this is what you get. There are three kinds of different grades that you'll get. You have either light or sweet, medium sour, and heavy sour. Obviously, the light sweet is going to be more expensive, a little bit not as hard to crack. That's what we call it. We crack all these different molecules. But here's the breakdown of what comes out. 45% of that becomes gasoline. That's probably our largest maker. And then we have our jet fuel, so that all of you can take nice vacations or get from point A to point B, so you can go visit mom in a different country, or you want to go and take your mom on vacation to a different country, and so on. We'll go to the next slide. I'm really trying to rush because I know we're really short on time. Again, this is how we break down our molecules. This is our refining concepts of how all these molecule breakings happen and what we're going to get out of that. Next slide. And so where does our product go? Our product, I started off by saying it's in medical devices. My glasses, it's in my glasses, it's in crayons, it's on our credit cards, it's on our iPhones that none of us can live without. Our dentures. Anybody with dentures here? I think I'm going to get some pretty soon. Sporting devices. It's in everything. But I think that the problem here is out of sight, out of mind. I think that because it's not a commodity that, is gone or that we miss, because we don't really know that it's there. Next slide. So this, I brought this up because I thought it was important to tell you about the different innovative equipment that our product is in at a hospital. Just at a hospital, you'll see all these different items that use our product. So what would happen if our product wasn't in there? And I think that folks forget that. It's easy to forget because, again, like I said, it's out of sight, out of mind. But I did make my PowerPoint a little quick and fast, and I didn't really go through my points because I know we're short on time. There might be some questions. But I just want to leave you with this thought. At Valero, we're committed to advancing the future of energy through innovation and ingenuity through unmatched execution. And we do that by our best asset, and we call our best asset our employees. Our employees are our best asset. So with that, I don't know if there are any questions that I can answer. I feel like I went quickly through this. I had a lot more information, but I know folks have to get back. So I think the impact here, Diana, is that, we're going to miss opportunities to really look at things that we can work on together because we're moving so quickly and believe that, we should have done these changes yesterday. So in that, we're going to be talking about the risk of how the cost of doing that. There are critical minerals and supply chains that we can't really control. The cost of infrastructure that we can see is going to affect whether it's at the apartment complex or not having the access to all those materials to create this infrastructure that we are really behind on. I mean, you talk to even the electrical company, and I feel like they're not up to speed on this because we just can't get those sort of materials. And then the affordability. Is this going to be equitable for all? Can everybody go out there and purchase one of these high-end vehicles? Not everybody's going to have access to that. And I think that that's what is really missing from the conversation. So the amount of raw materials in one battery electric vehicle could be used to make 90 hybrid electric vehicles. So mandating what kind of car I have to drive or what I can buy after 2035 is going to be tough for a lot of people. And when you don't even have the infrastructure on the roads, you don't have a transportation system that can get you from downtown LA to the harbor area where I live within like less than an hour in just public transportation, it's not going to work. Who does that affect? It affects those that cannot afford to get on board with all these mandates.
Diana, I did get the numbers to that excellent question. Our communications folks just texted that to me. So
great.
Yeah, they're so on it, right? There are 158,000 oil workers in California, and 30% are Latino, and even in Southern California, it's about 38%. So interest, we'd love to get those numbers higher. So, but that's the numbers that are in currently. We have the LA Environmental Development Corporation do those for us, and that's what they reported. So, thank you.
That earlier, our company has been in this innovative space for well over 10 years, and looking at different things that we can do to bring innovations in the space of catching up on making sure that we have clean air and so on. So things that are important to us, and I think should be to all, are access. Having access to be able to have these vehicles or use a clean transportation fuel, and that's what we're doing. It doesn't require this high front cost that we can't seem to do or to even do with our vehicles. And then what becomes of the life of our vehicle? We are committed to renewable diesel, and we've talked about how Valero has 3 Diamond Green Diesel plants. You know, we believe that we have to be able to provide that sort of infrastructure, that sort of fuel, so that we can get our goods movements going and logistics. This is part of all of our logistics. So we are already also part of the renewable diesel, ethanol, sustainable aviation, which is already reducing the transportation green gas emissions. And then renewable ready, being renewable ready. Valero's renewable diesel is typically made from waste materials, and ethanol plants are located near abundant renewable feedstock. And we were very strategic with that. Unlike most EV battery components, our low carbon fuels are manufactured close to home in jurisdictions with strict environmental, labor, and governance regulations, which we follow. And Valero has some of the lowest operating costs in the industry, and the company has the ability to export to help our world meet goals to reduce carbon.
I wish that we had a lot more time so we can get more into the details, but I think, Olivia, our program is coming to an end, and I think I'm handing it off to you now.
Well, thank you, Diana. Thank you, Cathy, Argelia, and Brissa. And Patty Seneca, who's also joining us from WSPA. This topic was badly needed. You know, it's something that's new for the chamber, and we're hoping to bring more programming and information down the line. I know there's new legislation, regulations that are coming up. And Diana, let me ask you a quick question. Is there anything, any assembly bill or state bill that folks should keep an eye out for?
There's definitely a lot of them. I know that Cathy touched upon one of them earlier in her presentation. Kat, do you want to give like a brief?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few. Probably, Diana, what we'll do is we have a nice easy one pager on, you know, the top 10 and what they do. Of course, as we know, most the legislative session is completed, and so now some of those are sitting on the governor's desk to sign. He doesn't have much more time to sign them or veto them, but we'll know the outcome of the rest of those. But please, one of them, obviously, we touched on. The other ones were what's called at birth. And this is a regulation by the California Resources Board that is being implemented. We're in a lot of conversations with them because there are requirements that are being put on container and oil tankers into the ports of LA and Long Beach, which is going to make it more difficult for us to get the supplies we need and more expensive. And so those are the types of things to just make sure, Diana, we send out, and Olivia, to you all to get out to the membership to say, look, these are the kinds of things that are going to raise cost. And you need a voice to say, is that appropriate, or is that needed, or is there anything else we can do? So that's a big one that's kind of in play at the moment. The other ones are called advanced clean cars, advanced clean fleets, advanced clean trucks. So all the trucks, fleets, cars. And this is, again, moving towards full electrification, and many issues around those regulations. They're coming out through the California Air Resources Board. You heard from our certainly one of our Latina Tuvos members on how that impacted the trucks that are utilized and the requirement for purchasing new trucks. So whether it's cars, trucks, or fleets, all of those are going to be more expensive and put more cost. So having a voice about what's realistic. And again, none of this is about not getting to the goals the state has put out. They're aggressive goals, but it's about how we go about it. It's not if, it's how, because we can do it in a way that minimizes cost, or we can choose to do the most expensive thing. You still get to the same goal, but our view would be, let's try to find a way to do it that doesn't have these kinds of impacts on communities that frankly cannot afford it. And that's just going to be, the conversation. It's affordability. It's not technology. It's not that we can't figure it out, but we've got to do it at in the right time frame and the right cost structure, so that we can actually have an energy expansion that makes sense and that is reliable. Because as I always say, we wake up every day. Hopefully we wake up every day and we, want to turn our lights on, heat and cool our homes, and drive from A to B affordably, cleanly, reliably. That's what we all want to do. So let's get together and have a plan that does that.
Okay. Well, thank you, ladies. One thing is there is a call to action. So contact your local representatives and get involved. Scan the QR code and share your narrative on Levanta Tu Voz. And then follow the Chamber and WSPA for any updates. This conversation will surely follow as things do change. So I want to thank everyone that is here with us. Thank you for the support. Thank you, Diana, for moderating.